I've only got just a little bit of voice left, and this is a 1,000-year-old story, and it's the first time anybody's ever heard it. This is called Shula and the Sea Lion. It's a shadow dance, and you'll see when you guys' parts will come in from out there. Our story this time is not so much about Shula as about her friend Eemook, Shula's lifelong companion of the longhouse, and how he dealt with the strange spirit that came one night to entrance the tribe. The boy Eemook was the tribe's spoonmaker. This job was usually assigned to one of the old people who were near to singing their ending song. They could be better spared to crawl about on the beach, scavenging for washed-up shells and the driftwood handles to fit them. But young Eemook was a cripple. Before his birth, his mother had been gathering sea urchins from a low tide at the base of the cliff when a sly wave caught her from behind and mauled her terribly. The netsmen on the rocks pulled her from the surf and pounded the water from her lungs. When her breath began, so did her labor. After the child was born, the unfortunate young mother died on the pebbles, barely a woman. Eemook's mother had been a girl of poor relatives, and her death left her babe nothing but a cocked backbone and crooked knees. The chief at that time was old Um-Lalagic, Shula's grandfather, a man not known to be of sentimental nature. It was his judgment that the broken baby should be left on the low rocks the way girl babies were often disposed of. The tribe could not be burdened with unproductive members. "It will be best to send this moon fawn along with the doe that bore it," he maintained, "and let the tide spirits finish what they have begun." Many of the people agreed, but Um-Lalagic, the old woman who slept alone because she was barren and produced only foul winds, the fool woman of the clan, the root finder, spoke up for the babe. "I shall keep him. I shall raise him and make him strong with clam nectar and honey," she said. "I shall call him Eemook, the broken thing, and he shall call me grandmother." Old Um-Lalagic took back his sentence and told the old woman she could keep the child. He was no doubt swayed by his respect for Um-Lalagic's skill with the life-preserving herbs. Then he died the very week following when a wave rolled a drift log over him. Some of the clan muttered that it was because of his recanted judgment. The spirits do not care for unsteady leaders, they claimed, or deformed orphans either. The old woman paid the mutterers no heed. She raised the boy in her corner of the longhouse. She worked hard to feed him and clothe him and to teach his crooked knees to crawl. In the long winter evenings, she made shadow plays for him. She fashioned sticks to help him walk. She rubbed his back and his knees with special oils and sung many healing chants, but his bones never straightened. With his walking sticks, he could, after a fashion, keep up with the smaller of the boys. Without the sticks, he could only pull himself along in a kind of crawling hop, like something from a bog. Still, as though to make up for these defects, the great no-thing that gives and watches had also given Eemook long, smart fingers and a tongue clever at story singing, and sharp eyes like Urvek the osprey, who can circle higher than the sun and still search the landscape far below for the perfect twig to finish the nest. Young Eemook had always been satisfied enough with these gifts. He worked at his chore of spoon-making bravely and cheerfully, and he was happy. But one fall afternoon, this all changed. He was on the tribe's beach beneath the cliff at the big smooth stone where he did his work. It was late in the season. The drooping sun showed the bellies of many clouds swelling to the south. Eemook was working with his bow drill, making holes in the shells he had collected so the handles could be tied secure. When he would raise his eyes from his work, he could see the other men on the rocks where the surf crashed into the mouth of the tribe's stream. The men danced from rock to rock, their three-pointed Leicester spears held high, singing their wish for the one last prize of the season, that they each hoped to capture. Above the men, coming along the surf, the women also sang as they hurried back and forth from the longhouse to the clam beds and the tide pools. Watching the men and the women singing and working together began to make Eemook feel very lonely. He was wishing he also had a partner to sing along with. He was hoping his playmate, Shula, might slip away and come help him with the drilling, the way she used to do, when, as if in response to his wish, he heard his name called. "Yai, Eemook, yai!" He looked up and saw Shula on the bluff above, hurrying along with the other young women from the longhouse. Her cedar bark skirt was tucked high so she could climb the rocks. Her long hair was flapping around her shoulders like the blue-black wings of the raven. She waved her basket to him, and it was a woman's basket. The boy Eemook waved back, clacking his tools together above his head. As he was waving, Chief Gawgawnee, the son of that unsentimental old chief and Shula's jealous father, came bustling along behind the maidens. He saw that Eemook was not at his chore. "You worthless jellyfish!" the chief shouted. "You slug! You loaf at your job! You make no haste at the end of the season. You should be buried in mud like a frog boy. Shula, all of you, back to work, back to work." The chief rushed on, shooing his daughter and the others ahead over the slopes out of sight. The waves went quiet. The barnacles hissed in the sagging sun. The wind cried its mournful cry in the ribbon grasses. Lonely, lonely. And Eemook's eyes filled in sympathy with that wind. He felt smaller and lonelier than ever. He put aside his drill and he spoke out loud to himself. "I do not wish to be a frog boy forever," he said. "I wish I could turn into a man." Though he knew that what he wished, truly wished, was that Shula would come help him. Perhaps the two wishes were the same wish. He did not know. He did know that neither wish was very likely to come true. Shula was the only child of the chief. Though the chief had fathered many offspring, they had all been girl babies, and at his practical command, their nursing cradle had been that cruel surf at the bottom of the big cliff. But on the eve that Shula was born, it happened that the chief had enjoyed a very special day at his fishing weir. 40 big red salmon and a fat seal pup had been trapped in the stone maze. The chief thought that this new girl might be the cause of his good fortune, and he called her Shula, the luck bringer, and he let his wives keep her. Shula grew to be the Eemook's only true friend, and he hers. The tribe was a small one, and Eemook and Shula were the only children of the same season. And now she was gathering clams with a woman's basket, with her skirt tucked high. Eemook looked at his own bare legs and he sighed. No, his wishing had changed nothing. Eemook knew animals, he knew their ways, and while a tadpole can become a frog will never turn into a man. He set his jaw and he bent back to his bow. And as the drill drilled, he heard the men singing on the rocks. And the song they sung was a song in praise of the sea. It called the sea a great warrior, an adversary, from whom the prize must be won. The women in the cove filling their baskets with crabs and mussels, or with sea grasses to grind with fern root for wapatos for their bread, they sang back. They sang that the sea was a mother, to be honored for their care and nourishment she granted the tribe. "The sea is neither warrior nor mother," Eemook said to himself. "The sea is nothing but a great bowl of fish stew, and the best that I, Eemook, can do is make a great spoon for it." And with that he reached into the bottom of his basket and he took out a roll of woven cedar cloth. After looking both ways, he began to unroll the bundle. From the wrapping he produced a long, shiny object, a bone, polished white and curved as sweetly as the slimmest crescent of the newest moon, and longer than his leg. It was the rib of some great beast, found long before by Eemook and carved in careful secrecy over many seasons, and it was nearly complete. Eemook had fashioned the length of it into all the little animals that he had come to know and love in his lonely life. The sand runner and the shy rock crab and the tree toad, the pine squirrel and the puffin and the crow and the sky dwellers and the sea creatures and the denizens of the ferns and the thickets, all perfectly carved one into the other down the length of the bone. The hilt was already notched where it would fit the perfect shell when the perfect shell was finally found. Eemook had looked for such a shell since he had discovered the great bone, yet had never found anything nearly large enough or beautiful enough. But then, the longer he waited, he thought, feeling happy again, the richer his carving would become. And he spread the cedar cloth on the beach, and he placed the carving in the center, and he sprinkled fine sand over the bone and began to rub it with his thumbs, singing as he worked. Here I have a chain of family, I think. They link, they link, they link, they link to each other. The frog to the mouse to the weasel, they mate, they wait, they wait, they wait to find the great vessel. Then they will shine together, oh he, like the spoon of stars that wheels about the star that never moves. Hi he, hi oh family. As he sang, he did not notice that the girl Shula had come back from the pools after all. She was creeping down the little cliff behind him with her basket full of seagrasses and her eyes bright with mischief. Closer and closer she crept to the singing Eemook until she was right behind him. Then with a laugh, she dumped all the wet brown seagrasses over his unsuspecting head. Eemook sprang up with a shout, outraged and delighted. He tried to catch his friend, but she was too nimble. She danced out of his reach, around the big rock, laughing and pointing. When Eemook saw the shape his shadow made on the sand, he laughed also. The seagrasses hung down to his humped shoulders like a heavy mane. Laughing, he fell to his belly and began to rock his head to and fro, like the bull seal calling its song of courtship to the young cow. The girl shrieked with delight and fell to her knees to join her playmate. They were rocking their way across the sand toward each other when Um-Lalagic, the boy's old grandmother, appeared on the cliff with a basket of roots. She began to throw the roots down on them. "Foolish children," she scolded. "Do you mock the spirits of deep water? Stop this play and hurry to your tasks. Fall is gone. Winter is here. I just spoke with Talagak, the crow, and he told me that the storms will strike this very night. Bad storms. We must finish our gathering this very day, or there will be much grumbling of big bellies in the longhouse before spring returns. Now hurry, and no more mockery." As the old woman waddled away up the hill toward the longhouse, the young couple covered their faces and laughed to each other. For Um-Lalagic had the biggest belly of the tribe, and it growled and grumbled night and day, full or empty, whatever the season. All the tribe laughed at her and called her Old Windsack, or Spider Squaw, for indeed she did look like a spider with her skinny limbs and her big belly. But Eemook loved the old woman and knew that for all her growling and her wind-breaking, she was very wise, and he set about helping Shula refill her basket. When the last tangle of grasses was lifted from the stone, there lay the beautiful carved bone. Eemook had forgotten his carving in his play. He tried to snatch it from sight, but the girl begged to see it. Slowly he unfolded the wrapping. "Oh, Eemook, it is the most wonderful handle of all," she exclaimed. "It is beautiful, and it is perfect. But wherever will you find the shell to finish it? There is no such shell in all the sea." "For every hook there is a fish," Eemook said, trying to sound like old Um-Lalagic, "and for every spade a hole." He started to return his wonderful bone to its wrapping, but Shula wished to study the carving more closely. "I must hold it, Eemook," she begged. "May I, for only a little while?" No other hand had ever touched the carving, and Eemook was reluctant. The magic might leak out if he relinquished it before it was finished. "Yes, you may look at it," he said at last, "but I must hold to the other end." He held forth the bone, keeping a tight grip on one end, and allowed Shula to run her fingers along its intricately wrought length. As she did this, a very strange thing happened. The waves again went quiet, and all the bustle of the shoreside did the same. The men ceased chanting and waving their spears. The women on the bluff stopped still, frozen in mid-hurry. Even the wind withdrew its moaning, leaving the ribbon grasses stiffly out at an angle. The young couple blinked at each other, their mouths wide like rock bass. The sea itself was the only thing that had not gone completely still, and even it had slowed way down. The waves rolled as leisurely as summer clouds, and very bright. And when the two friends looked out at the brightness they saw, moving from crest to crest as though from gentle hand to hand,